video, we'll talk about some common researcher identifiers that you can use to track and communicate the impact of your research output. We'll look at 4 tools, see what they do and how they can work together to best represent you as a researcher. And we'll cover how to get started with each tool and where you can go to find more information and advice. There are 4 common identifiers. These are ORCID, Google Scholar Citations, Researcher ID, which is hosted on a Publons profile, and Scopus Author ID. Why are there so many options? Because each identifier does something slightly differently. The following information will help you choose which tool or which combination of tools will work for you. So let's take a closer look at each of these 4 identifiers. We'll start with ORCID. ORCID stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID. And ORCID is a persistent digital identifier, a unique number that connects you to your research output. And that number draws together your published research and lists it on an online profile. This profile is key to ORCID. You can use it to build a comprehensive picture of your research career, adding your education and employment details, listing keywords to describe your research, naming affiliations and collaborators, and linking your other research profiles and researcher identifiers. ORCID is dedicated to research. It's a non-profit initiative driven by a global community of research institutions and agencies, publishers, funding bodies, and professional associations. So, what are the benefits of using ORCID? ORCID gives you a personal profile that you can populate, edit, and manage and use to link all your other professional profiles. ORCID also links and sometimes integrates with other researcher identifiers, and the unique number means that all your publications can be accurately attributed to you, so you can easily maintain a list of your published work. Many publishers actually ask for submitting authors to provide their ORCID, and the systems of peak research bodies like ARC integrate with ORCID to simplify grant application processes. In addition to those benefits, or perhaps because of them, UTAS researchers are expected to create, use, and maintain an ORCID. So how do you get an ORCID? Register online and make sure you make your profile public. The more information your ORCID profile contains about you, the better your ORCID will work. So add as much detail as you can, especially about your education and employment details. Adding keywords about your research can be helpful if you haven't yet got any publications to add. If you do have publications, add them and connect your other profiles and identifiers to keep that publication list updated. Now let's look at Google Scholar Citations. Google Scholar Citations enables you to group all your publications that are indexed by Google Scholar, making them easily findable by anyone searching Scholar for your name. You get a public profile, but there are no unique author IDs, so it will be up to you to manage and maintain your publication list and to check that the papers attached to your profile are indeed your work. You can configure Scholar to automatically update publications, or you can choose to add and review them manually. So why use Google Scholar Citations? We all know it's a very popular place to search, so having a public Google Scholar Citations profile boosts your discoverability. And this discoverability can facilitate networking because anyone in the world can find you and look at your work. A Google Scholar Citation profile gives you access to citation metrics on your publication and an H-index to indicate the impact of your output. So if this sounds like a tool you'd like to use, be aware you can only set up a profile if you've got 1 or more papers indexed in Google. If you do, go to the Google Scholar Citations page to get started. As you add your details, set your affiliation to the University of Tasmania to have your profile added to the list of UTAS profiles. You can then search for other publications you might have, and then link this new profile to your existing ORCID, so that anyone who views your Google Scholar profile can see a full publication list and more about your research career on your ORCID profile. Next is Researcher ID. This one's an author identifier that will group all your publications that are indexed in the Web of Science database. Researcher ID sits on something called a Publons profile, which is an individual space that tracks other kinds of activities you might be involved in within Web of Science during your career, such as peer reviewing. Researcher ID is a great tool for grouping all your Web of Science indexed publications, particularly because it allows you to add the variant spellings or ways of writing your name that might be used in the different articles you have published. You can also see papers that cite your work and view metrics based on those citations, including an H-index. And a great feature of Researcher ID is that you can set it to integrate with ORCID, so information about new papers indexed in Web of Science will be fed into your ORCID and update your publication list there. How do you get a Researcher ID? Try searching for yourself in Web of Science. If you've got publications indexed there, you can create a profile from the record, or search the web for Publons and follow the steps to register. You can then add publications to your Researcher ID, either directly from Web of Science, or add others using your ORCID, your article's DOI, or by file upload. You can connect your other profiles and use the permission settings to grant permission for your Researcher ID to integrate with your ORCID. The last tool we'll look at is Scopus Author ID. Like Researcher ID, this identifier exists within a specific database, this time Scopus. A Scopus Author ID is the unique identifier given to every author who has work indexed in Scopus. Author ID allows you to easily merge different spellings of your name to find all your indexed publications. You can use it to track citations of your work and to see metrics, both author and article level, that show the impact of your research. You can even build metric reports that you can export to use in presentations or funding applications. Author ID also talks to ORCID, so you can easily add Scopus index publications to your ORCID. Want to use this one? Scopus will automatically generate an author ID the first time one of your papers is indexed in the database. To start using that ID, you need to register for an account with Scopus and then search for your name or one of your indexed papers. Click on your name when you see it and you'll land on your author details page. And on that page, there's a wizard that you can use to share and merge alternative publishing names. And that will bring together all your indexed publications under your one Scopus Author ID. You can use that same wizard to connect your ORCID to your Scopus Author ID and keep your ORCID populated. And that brings us to the end of this summary of these 4 common researcher identifiers. We've looked at ORCID, Google Scholar Citations, Researcher ID, and Scopus Author ID. We've described what each identifier does and shown how they can work together to manage and communicate your research identity. To get started using any of these identifiers, navigate to the UTAS Library's Research Identity LibGuide, because this guide has much more information about all 4 identifiers and also has the instructions and links that you'll need to set up and connect each tool to get them working for you.